coming. They're going to need to be able to see the screen anyway when I switch out the screens. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم والحمد لله رب العالمين نوينا تعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإثارة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, sleepy Tuesday night. All right. I won't make you say it again. I'm not one of those events. Thank you for joining again. Please, if you're sitting in the back and you have a hard time hearing, or maybe if you're going to struggle to see the screen, then I encourage you to move forward. We can set out more seats in the front. So this is going to be a continuation of our talks around the ring composition of the Qur'an. And just to kind of recap, again, we are looking at what's called the ring composition. It's a type of way of reading the Qur'an, or rather recognizing the structure of the Qur'an, the way it was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, with the understanding that this is intentional by design, with the intention that we read it this way, not simply linearly or what's called atomistically. Rather, we want to read it as one cohesive unit, as Imam al-Farahi, rahimahullah, suggests. And the ring composition, again, just to recap, is basically there are, in every surah, there are distinct units or sections. And as you progress through the reading of any surah, there will be moments where a section will refer back to a previous section. This is called, in general, it's called tanasub, or basically how ayat relate to one another. This occurs across surahs, but we are specifically looking tonight within, or we have been looking at within a surah, and we call this intertextuality. It's a big fancy word. A lot of people are working on ring composition today. You've probably heard of them. Nu'man Ali Khan, Sheikh Sohaib Saeed, a few other people are also reading this, but in other traditions. And our goal, again, is not just to be wow and bedazzled by the ring composition, but to find ways that it will facilitate a deeper understanding. And tonight there will be, I feel like it's cutting out a couple times. No? Is it okay? There will be a couple times where it will become very important that we rely on the ring composition, particularly in this surah, because there's a lot of ambiguity that runs all throughout the Qur'an, but even in this surah, there's ambiguity that runs at the word level, like what does this word mean? There's ambiguity that runs at the syntactic level, that is within a sentence or a phrase. I'll give you some examples really quickly before we dive in, why this kind of reading helps. In syntax, so I'm a linguist by training. Anybody studied linguistics or familiar at all? Phonetics, phonology, morphology? No? Discourse analysis, pragmatics? No? Okay. Anybody study Arabic? Raise your hand if you've studied Arabic or you're studying Arabic. No one? No one here studying Arabic. I don't believe any of you, as I know you do, and I know you do. No one in the back studies Arabic. Awesome. This is a great time to plug my class. We meet on Wednesdays and Sundays. We're studying Surah Yusuf. I think I just killed it. No, I don't think that's me. Oh, it's probably dead. Can I project? And you can hear me? I'm a loud guy. So ambiguity at the syntax level. I'll give you an example in English. I saw the man with the telescope. I saw the man with the telescope. What's ambiguous there? Who the man is? No. Yeah, who's got the telescope? Did I see him while I was using the telescope? Like I saw him with the telescope? Or I saw the man who has the telescope, right? That's a type of syntactic ambiguity. The ambiguity, I'll spare you the bloody details, but this has to do with the structure, the hierarchy of the sentence, how things are governed within a sentence. Maybe one day I'll pull out some syntax trees. You can actually Google syntactic tree, and it's a uh, nice adventure. Another example, um, I'll trade it out. Bismillah. Okay. Okay. Another example would be the old men and women came to the masjid. The old men and women came to the masjid. What's ambiguous there? Are the women old or not? Is it just old men and women? Or is it old men and old women? Again, this is syntactic ambiguity. And if you wanted to analyze how they are ambiguous, you would develop a syntax tree or a syntactic tree. What we do with ring composition is we have what's called the field of pragmatics. This is a field in linguistics where we don't look at necessarily what words mean or how sentences are formed, but rather how we use language, how we use speech. Not what does it mean, but how we use it. Okay? For example, a police officer can say, "You're under arrest," and he doesn't need any handcuffs or he doesn't need to touch you. You are under arrest just by his words. It's a speech act. That's within the field of pragmatics. How is his speech able to do that? How is it able to arrest you? Because he has a certain authority that I don't have. I cannot arrest you just with my words, right? So within the field of pragmatics, we look at the way a discourse is structured. And in the Quran, we can analyze the Quran. I hate to analyze the Quran, but we will analyze it to understand what are the relationships throughout the surah. Okay, and we'll see tonight, hopefully, inshallah, where ring composition will help us disambiguate certain places in the Quran that have been actually up for debate for many, many centuries. Okay, um, what we're going to work on tonight, I know you've never seen before. I know you've never seen it because I've never seen it, and I know no one has written on this. So basically, if you just copy paste whatever I'm doing tonight, turn it into a paper, inshallah, you'll get it published somewhere. I'm too busy and too lazy to go down that route. But I assure you, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Who was here last time for ring structure? Yeah? Am I right? Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It's clear as day, right? Okay. You'll see this similarly tonight, inshallah. But I have never seen anybody analyze it this way, not even in Arabic. Maybe in Urdu. All the great mufassirin are from India and Pakistan now. It's not me who says it. This is what the Arabs and the Persians admit. Okay. Um, so, uh, so tonight we want to talk about probably my favorite surah. I don't want this surah to be my favorite. You know why? Because I feel so cliche saying, "Oh, this is my favorite surah," just like everybody, right? Is it anybody's favorite in here? Okay, I really don't want it to be, but well, it really is. I come back to it every time and say, "See, subhanAllah, this is why it's my favorite surah." For those who said it's your favorite surah, why is it your favorite surah? It does. It has a mirror effect. It starts to kind of like, especially when it starts talking about the two Jannahs, the two gardens. Yeah. Okay. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum. How's that? Same. Same. Different, but still same. Yeah. Okay. Who else said it's their favorite surah? Nobody wants to tell me why it's your favorite surah. I can tell you why it's my favorite surah. There's a few reasons. It's one. It's just so beautiful. the meaning is just so beautiful, like the imagery, um, just the way it makes me feel when I read it. The sound, the recitation of it is indescribable. It's undescribable. It's so beautiful. I would say also there are some pearls in here that I go diving for and I don't come up. Like I'm just down there. Maybe in the first talk, you remember I talked about this, the three ways of reading the Quran. One is kind of surfing across the surface just to make, just to get some distance, just to get as much in as you can. You're reading for maybe a khatam or something. Then you go snorkeling, where you're going to stop a little bit, you're going to ponder, you're going to reflect in a certain area, and just be amazed and bedazzled by what you witness. And then there are times you go down and you scuba dive, and you should always scuba with a partner. So I do this a lot with Surat Rahman. It keeps me up at night. But there's one last reason, there's two more reasons. If you memorize one ayah from this, you effectively memorize 31 ayat. Which one is it? فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Who here has not memorized that? Don't be shy. Raise your hand. All right? Memorize this tonight, and you will have memorized 31 ayat, because it occurs 31 times in this surah. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Come afterwards, and we can recite it together, inshallah. Actually, don't recite it with me. Recite it with the sheikh. You don't make tayammum when you can make wudu. The sheikh here. I see you, brother. No, it's my screen. You went to sleep. Because I've been talking. I put my screen to sleep with my talking. It's usually my kids. One last reason, two more reasons why it's my favorite surah. It has my wife's name in it. I have to say that. Bayan. My wife's name is Bayan. And then finally, this surah is the only surah, not just the only surah, the only scripture, the only text, the only speech where Allah speaks to humans and jinn at the same time. It's extraordinary. That is, it's not just talking about the jinn. You could read in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible or even the New Testament where there's a narrative around, oh, God speaks to the demons, or God speaks to the angels and he says to them, da, 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 da. But that's not what I'm talking about. It's not narrative form. The Quran itself, Allah is directly speaking to the jinn when he says, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Which of your Lord's bounties or marvels will either of you deny? Either of you, meaning you humans or you jinn. This is extraordinary. If it doesn't resonate with you yet, it's because you're probably not understanding just how extraordinary this is. So that's probably the last reason why it's my favorite. So anyway, I've tried to not let this be my favorite, but it really is. Before we continue, before we start our pearl diving, I should give you a heads up. I took the liberty of editing some of the translation here, some little JavaScript magic, because somebody showed me that. But I will tell you where I did that and tell you why, okay? Because I have the license to do that. I did my degree, I earned it. Okay, so let's just start by reading who did the homework? Who read the surah in advance? A couple of you? Okay, awesome. I like them. None of you guys? Go to the back. All right, so this surah, I'm going to walk us through section by section. We will not complete it tonight. We will get maybe halfway through, probably right to the fulcrum, the pivot point in the surah, the centerpiece, and then we will continue it in the next one. Okay? All right. So it begins, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. We'll stop there for a second. It begins, oh, maybe when it fell asleep, it forgot that I was. Okay. All right. It begins, Ar-Rahman, the compassionate, Allama al-Qur'an, has taught the Qur'an, Khalaq al-Insan, he created man, Allamahul Bayan, and taught him clear expression. I'm not happy with that translation. I should go back and edit it later. So this word Ar-Rahman, as many of you probably know, Ar-Rahman, it means the compassionate, the merciful. It's really hard to translate in English because it doesn't quite capture anything that we have, and I'll explain why. It's related to what word? What word do we usually, for those who are familiar? Ar-Rahim. What is a Rahim? The womb. The womb. Now, you might be thinking, oh, that's where the word Rahman comes from, because of the womb. But Allah in a hadith Qudsi says this, you can find this in At-Tirmidhi. He says, Inni ana Allah, wa ana Rahman, wa ana khalaqtu ar-Rahim, wa shaqaqtu laha min ismi. He says, I am Allah, and I am the Rahman, and I created the womb, the Rahim, and I derived it from my name. That sounds pretty, right? It's beautiful. But this is a deep theological point, okay? It is a very deep theological point that we will revisit when we come to the fulcrum where it's talking about the names of Allah, okay? The name Ar-Rahman, it's a name of Allah. It's one of the Asma al-Husna. That is the most beautiful names of Allah. Some say that this surah is revealed in the context where in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, in Mecca, they didn't have this name Ar-Rahman. They didn't use Rahman to describe Allah, right? They within the so-called pantheon that they had in the Jahiliyyah, Ar-Rahman was not part of it. Allah was, but not Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman was actually the name of God in Yemen. The Yemenis always referred to Allah as Ar-Rahman. So there's a place in the Quran where it says, قُلْ ادعوا الله أو ادعوا الرحمن. So it says, say, O Muhammad, call upon Allah or call upon the Rahman. Either way, he possesses the most beautiful names, al-Asma al-Husna, meaning Allah possesses the most beautiful names. And he's basically saying Allah is Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahman is Allah. And this was something strange to the Meccans at the time. Dr. Devin Stewart has a paper on this phenomenon. It's an interesting paper. So Ar-Rahman is one of the attributes of Allah. Now, as a name, we've determined that the Rahim is derived from his name, his attributes. Okay, the Rahim is not inherently compassionate or merciful. Okay, it cannot be. Nothing in the creation can inherently possess the attributes of Allah. They are Allah's attributes. Understand? And they are reflected. His attributes are reflected in the creation at whatever capacity these creatures in the creation can hold them. So the Rahim, he gives it the quality of Rahmah. It does not inherently possess Rahmah. Okay? So Ar-Rahman, how is it different from Rahim? So Rahim, you know, when we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the Rahim just means the one who is merciful, compassionate, Dhur Rahmah, the one who's possessing Rahmah. How does that differ from Rahman? Sometimes you'll hear people say, well, Rahman is more emphatic. It's for emphasis, right? It's an intense version of Rahim. I'm never satisfied with that. I'm never satisfied with that. We need to look more at the linguistic details of it. Okay, so for the Arabic speakers or people who have studied, how do you say cold in Arabic. Like I want to say the water is cold. Barid. Barid. What if I want to say the water is hot? Har. Har. What if I want to say I'm cold? Bardan. What if I say I'm hot? Like I'm feeling hot. Hamyan or harran. Shob. So bardan is how we would say this. How would you say thirsty? Atshan. And hungry? Jaw'an. Okay. Angry? Ghabban. Compassionate? Rahman. You see, in Arabic, there are multiple ways of creating what we call like adjectives out of the Arabic root system. One way is if you put it in this pattern, the fa'il pattern, you'll get kabir, latif, saghir, rahim, right? And this is just a plain vanilla adjective. It means it has that quality of bigness, smallness, okay? But then when you put it into this pattern, the fa'lan pattern, where you have rahman, atshan, jaw'an, ghadban, what's the difference between these types of adjectives? Now, again, keep in mind, let's refer to like cold and hot again. Cold water versus a cold person, like somebody who feels cold. What's the difference there? No one? Feelings. The feeling. Like if you say you're cold, it's because you feel cold. If you're hungry, it's something that you feel. It's a sentiment. It's something that almost overtakes you, right? It's not something that you chose upon yourself. Like, I'm hungry. Like, no, you didn't choose. I mean, maybe if you're fasting, but the hunger arrives to you, it reaches you. Okay? So this is some kind of adjective or a descriptor, like on the pattern of fa'lan, where the one experiencing it experiences it based off of their sentiment, how they feel about something. Okay? So this is Rahman. It's more than just being merciful. It's almost like sympathetic. It's something very deep and intrinsic. And of course it is intrinsic. It's one of the names of Allah. But this is something, it speaks to how he feels about you. Not just like as a function of his job as being the Rahim, he must be merciful to you, which you could be like if you're, I don't know, some kind of judge and you want to grant clemency, you would be Rahim. Rahman, which is only used for Allah, by the way. We don't say Rahman for people. We can say Ra'uf. But Rahman is something that I don't want to say Allah feels, because I have no idea. But I'm saying that this pattern, this adjectival pattern in Arabic, typically corresponds with words that have to do with sentiment. Okay? So it's a compassion out of sympathy. Yeah.
So for human beings, feelings come and go. They thought. So how does that relate to Rahman?
They are not transient for Allah. Allah's names are eternal. And they're always there. It's just sometimes they get covered. And that's called kufr. That's why it's called kufr. When you're covering the names of Allah. Okay, so that's Ar-Rahman. We got through one ayah, one word. The next one, Allama al-Qur'an. Now, some of the ulama, they talk about this where, like Qurtubi and others, they talk about how Ar-Rahman allama al-Qur'an. Allama al-Qur'an means he taught the Qur'an. And since ta'lim or allama comes immediately after Rahman, it's as if the ta'lim or education or teaching is intrinsic to, it's an intrinsic relationship between Rahman and allama al-Qur'an. right? That it's not just anybody who's teaching the Quran. This is Ar-Rahman who's teaching the Quran. Could have used any other name. It could have used any other name. But it uses Ar-Rahman. The Quran, Allah uses the name Ar-Rahman to depict like that He is teaching the Quran. But who is He teaching? Well, nobody yet. Because the next ayah is where we see خلق الإنسان. خلق الإنسان. I believe it was, it's not Fakhruddin al-Razi, although he probably said it too. I'll have to check my notes on this. It's Ibn Ashur, who's actually a more recent scholar out of, I believe, Algeria. He dies in the 20th century. Ibn Ashur is phenomenal tafsir. It's only in Arabic right now, but I know some people are working on the English translation. When it comes out, when it drops, go pick it up. Okay. Anyway, so he mentions that this is demonstrating that it's as if Allah has already determined before your creation that the Quran is for you. That is, your purpose is to read or hear the Quran. I'm going to say hear, not read. Your purpose is to hear the Quran, because this is the means by which you know your Lord. Okay, so there was something very important here that in the planning, I guess you could say, of when Allah is teaching the Quran, He's not teaching it to anybody. It's allama al-Quran. Then خلق الإنسان علمه البيان, and He teaches him, or He taught mankind the bayan. This is the most difficult word in the Arabic language to translate. I've seen knockdown, drag-out fights between ulama over what this means, and it's literally a centuries-old discussion. I don't want to say debate, but it's a discussion. Bayan, other than the name of my beautiful wife, Bayan, like if you open like I think it's in the Risala of Imam Shafi'i, he begins the discourse talking about Bayan, because it's such a difficult word. Now, they usually one way that we root the understanding of Bayan, what it means, is there's a famous hadith attributed to the Prophet ﷺ where it says, "Inna min al-bayan la sihra." That is, some bayan is magic. And so ulama said this means speech. Like some speech is magical. Like it can have a power over you, right? Like rhetoric. Some speech is magic. So that's one interpretation of bayan. Some have understood bayan to mean eloquence in general, or articulate speech. But then there are others who say, well, no, it actually means the linguistic faculty entirely. That is, not just the ability to speak, but the ability to understand language at all. This is a divine gift. In linguistics, they will typically say it is a genetic endowment, that you have linguistic categories in the mind and the ability to speak and the ability to understand speech. So both fahm and ifham. You'll find this in the works of Isfahani, Imam al-Isfahani, who wrote he wrote many books, but he's known mostly for his Mufradat al-Alfaz al-Qur'an, that the vocabulary of the expressions in the Quran. It's very famous book, where he talks about this as well, that bayan captures both the speaking element and the comprehension element, right? So this is like in modern linguistics, they would call it like competence and performance, linguistic competence, like the ability, like you have language, but you may not, for whatever reason, you may have a head injury or some kind of disorder where you're not able to actually speak it. Okay, so that's why they make the distinction. But nonetheless, bayan in general, I will just understand it here as language, because this is how we understand the Quran. That is, it's a perfect match. It's a perfect perfect fit, right? Allah gives us bayan to know the Qur'an, to know Him through the Qur'an. Imagine that. Your bayan, and you have this, it's an endowment, it's a divine right. Allah has given it to you to understand the Qur'an, to understand His speech. And it's only a secondary or tertiary benefit that we can understand, human speech. This is what the Qur'an is saying here, as I understand it. And Ibn Ashur, that is, علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. Inshallah, we'll move beyond this section, I promise. Any questions there? I promise we're going to do some rings tonight. Okay, so it continues. الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان. Okay, we'll pause there. These next three. The sun and the moon are reckoned. I chose the word reckoned here because it mostly aligns better. Reckoning is when you have a scale, when you have scales and you balance them out, right? That's called reckoning, the balancing. Husban sometimes has to do with like computation or following an ordered path, or like reckoning, actually like a ship's reckoning. This is why sometimes you'll see a translation that says the sun and the moon follow a path of some kind. That's reckoning in terms of navigation. Okay, so وَالنَّجْمُ وَالشَّجَرُ يَسْجُدَانِ. Sorry, وَالشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرُ بِحُسْبَانٍ. Covered that. The sun and the moon, that they are in this kind of balance, right? That they are reckoned, right? وَالنَّجْمُ وَالشَّجَرُ يَسْجُدَانِ. Now here I took some licensing because I can. Normally you'll see, there's two ways that you'll often see a najm translated here. Usually it's, and the star and the trees, the stars and the trees prostrate themselves. Yes, Judan, they both prostrate. They make sajda. So sometimes they'll say stars. Other translators, they'll say, anybody know? Herbs. It's kind of weird. Shrubs, but usually herbs. Now the reason for that is because najm actually has two meanings. One, it means a star. For sure, it can mean a star. And it would make sense in this context, right? It's talking about the sun and the moon. But then it's also talking about trees. And so najm is actually in the Kitab al-Ain by my favorite linguist, al-Khalil ibn Ahmed al-Farahidi. He dies in 786. I always remember that because of the South Asian 786 thing. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So Al-Khalil ibn Ahmed al-Farahidi, I love this guy so much. Wallahi, he was gangster. Like he was from Oman, and he would walk into the city with a falcon on his shoulder, like just, like this was his job. He was a falconer. That's crazy. And he was also a linguist, but he was, mujahid. He was like, we call it zahid. He was like an ascetic. He only had books. That was all he owned in his house. And then a falcon when he had to go eat. He would use it to go for catching people's food for them. So anyway, so this is Al-Khalil ibn Ahmed, who this is the earliest dictionary in the Arabic language called Kitab al-Ain. I spent many, many nights with this, poring over it. In the Kitab al-Ain, he defines an-najm, along with others who define it thusly, as the sprouts that sprout out of a root. That is the roots of a tree or root of any kind of plant. When it comes up out of the ground a little bit, and then there are little sprouts, they're called shoots or suckers, right? They'll pop up off of these roots. That's what najm means. This is what he says about the Qur'an, and also this is one of the certain definitions of a najm. This is the nature of Arabic, by the way. It's a very tough language just for that reason alone. Every word has 4 meanings. Did you know this? Do you know this? Every word has 4 meanings. Have we talked about this? What are the 4 meanings? The original meaning, the opposite of that original meaning, Something to do with a camel, and then something vulgar. It's an old linguist joke. That's what makes it so difficult with Arabic language, because one word has so many different meanings. And I promise you, if you have the right classical Arabic dictionary, you will find that to be true in every word you look up. It's often surprising how creative Arabs can be with Arabic. Okay, so Najm, as I'm interpreting here, which you're free to interpret as a star, and in fact, Ibn Ashur says it's deliberately used here. There's other words that could have been used, but Najm is used deliberately here because of the transition between referencing the sun and the moon as interstellar or celestial bodies, and then transitioning into terrestrial bodies, talking about trees and now a type of herb or plant that grows off of the shoots of roots. When we get to the next section, you'll understand why I prefer this meaning. I'm fine with both. It means both. I agree with Ibn Ashur. It means both star, but also the root sprouts. Okay. They and the trees prostrate themselves. وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ. And the sky, He raised it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He raised it. رَفَعَهَا. He raised the sama. وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ. And He established or set the balance. Al-Mizan. Okay? Now, there are differences of opinion what al-Mizan means. I think that I've read, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but if I recall, Muhammad, the Mizan is some kind of celestial body. It's some kind of like Thuraya, like a Najm here is often said to be a specific star in the sky. Al-Mizan is said to be a specific constellation in the sky. I don't remember which one, what that would be. Yeah, I'll have to look this one up, but it's some kind of scales. But I understand this as most do. This is just in general. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He establishes the balances of everything. Just as He established the balance of the planets or the sun and the moon, He's also set certain balances in the creation. And we cannot transgress against them. So the next ayah even continues. So that you do not transgress in the balance. أَلَّا تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ وَأَقِيمُوا الْوَزْنَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تُخْسِرُوا الْمِيزَانَ. But maintain the weights with justice. Or وَأَقِيمُوا الْوَزْنَ بِالْقِسْطِ. Like be just in your measurement of things. And do not violate the balance. وَلَا تُخْسِرُوا الْمِيزَانَ. Don't short it. تُخْسِرُوا خُسْر. Don't create a loss from it. Don't rip anybody off. Right? That's one way of understanding this. وَالْأَرْضَ وَضَعَهَا لِلْأَنَامِ. And the earth, He set up for al-anam, the anam, the creatures within it. Others have interpreted this, wada'aha means He tamed it. That the earth was untamed, and then He tamed it for al-anam, so that it would be inhabitable. Am I going too fast? I'm kind of in a hurry. I want to get through it quickly. Yeah. Birthing. Yeah, very frequently in this surah. That's a good point. I do recall, I haven't seen a tafsir on this one, but I'm gonna have to think on that. Yeah. Yeah. You went really fast in the last part. 11? Yes, in fruits and palms and in clusters. Yeah. We've got to get through the section. You'll see. That's a good call out. That one doesn't actually go with that. فيها فاكهة ونخل ذات الأكمام. Where am I? There we are. Here. In it are fruits and palms in clusters. I believe Abdul Halim, he has a translation here that they are enclosed, that the palms are in enclosed clusters, or they're like somehow encased. That'll become relevant in a minute. And grains in their husk. وَالْحَبُّ ذُو الْعَصْفِ وَالرَّيْحَانِ. And grains in their husks, and rayhan, fragrant plants or flowers, but we use it to mean basil. Rayhan. It's very strong, pungent smell. If you have fresh basil in the kitchen, it's always a nice smell. This ayah alone has just kept me up so many nights, because quite frankly, the previous ayah, fruits and palms, I'm like, oh, that sounds delicious. And then grains and husks, I'm like, wait, what? That doesn't, what if I'm, I have, what is it called? Celiac or something, right? I don't find it as tasty. But this for me, this ayah is why I wanted to talk about this tonight. This ayah here is why I wanted to even talk about Surah Rahman tonight. And inshallah, we'll see why. وَالْحَبُّ ذُو الْعَصْفِ وَالرَّيْحَانِ فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Now we get into this one of 31 times that the surah mentions this phrase. Out of nowhere, it starts speaking to two audience members, to two people, or two listeners. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا. رَبِّكُمَا means the two of you. So which of your Lord's marvels will either of you deny? I should have edited that here. Will either of you deny? خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ كَالْفَخَّارِ. That is, he creates or created man from sounding clay, or salsal. Salsal is, I had to look this up a while ago, but salsal is not like normal clay from the ground. It's clay that's mixed in with sand. And so that when it dries, you can like hit it and it'll make a sound. It'll resonate because of the sand that's inside there. This is going to become really interesting when we get to the section on pearls. So salsalin kalfakhar, like baked pottery. As you know, like when you're making, you guys remember doing this in school, you have to go and make your pottery, and then you have to glaze it, and then you heat it up, right? This is how we are created. Like it's like, just be ready for the heat. وَخَلَقَ الْجَانَّ مِن مَارِجٍ مِّن نَارٍ. The Jan, this is another, some say this is the father of the jinn, Jan. So some have said that ins or insan refers to Adam, and Jan refers to the father of the jinn. Wallahu a'lam, I don't know about this. But nonetheless, Allah says He creates the jinn from marijin min nar. Some say a mixture, like a fusion of fire. Others say it's a smokeless fire. Oh, you see, I started to edit it here, and then I didn't complete it. It should be from a smokeless fire. The translator here that I'm using, I forget what his name is, but he chose to use fusion, and I prefer smokeless fire. It makes more sense in the context of the surah. Okay, and then it repeats, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. وَرَبُّ الْمَشْرِقَيْنِ رَبُّ الْمَشْرِقَيْنِ وَرَبُّ الْمَغْرِبَيْنِ. The Lord of the two easts and the Lord of the two wests. What are the two easts and two wests? Does anyone know? East and north? Mm-mm. The empires. Which empires? Not sure. Two Eastern empires and two Western empires. Typically, it's understood to be, yeah, you were going to say? Oh, I've seen this I don't remember which interpretation of this. I'm not sold on it because I don't see it setting the set. Does it say the setting, the rising in the west and the setting in the east? Is that there? Usually, it's understood to mean if you look out on the horizon in the summertime where the sun sets, it's quite different from where the sun sets in the wintertime. So, like what they call the summer solstice and the winter solstice, like it's pretty consistent. You can track it, right? And I think it's like a 47-degree differential. So because of the Earth on its axis at 23.5 degrees, because of that angle that it's spinning at, in the summer months, it'll be 47 degrees away from where it was in the winter months at its most extreme. So these are the two easts and the two wests. It's a lot to ponder on. I know we're kind of moving quickly, but just come back to this when you can, inshallah. I want to get to the rings. So that's Rabbul Mashriqaini wa Rabbul Maghribain, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. So which of your Lord's marvels will either of you deny? Is that 4? Are you counting? I think that's 4. Okay. Then مَرَجَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ يَلْتَقِيَانِ. This is why you need to know Arabic. Please come and take Arabic with me. Just for this. مَرَجَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ. Maraj. Maraja means to bring together or merge. But it's also the root of the word that we saw moments ago. وَخَلَقَ الْجَانَّ مِن مَّارِجٍ مِّن نَّارٍ. The marriage, the smokeless fire, marij min nar, right? Marriage is the same root as maraja. This is a pretty infrequent verb in the Quran. So for it to occur twice is noteworthy. بَيْنَهُمَا بَرْزَخٌ لَا يَبْغِيَانِ. Between them is a barrier, a barzakh, which they do not overrun or they do not transgress. They do not exceed. Sounds like we're hitting a ring, right? Earlier we were talking about أَلَّا تَتَغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ, so that you do not transgress the balance. Yeah? فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. So which of your Lord's marvels will either of you deny? يَخْرُجُ مِنْهُمَا اللُّؤْلُؤُ وَالْمَرْجَانِ. Marjan. She heard it. Anybody else hear it? 3 times? 3 times maraja occurs in the same surah. I think it only occurs in the Quran like 4, maybe 5 times. And 3 of them are in here. So what does it mean? From them emerge, or like out of them, meaning the 2 oceans or the 2 waters, come lu'lu' wal marjan. Pearls, and some say marjan means large pearls, some say small pearls. And then a third opinion is that marjan are coral. I'm of the opinion that it means coral. Okay. Pearls and coral, there's a fantastic discussion by Sheikh Hamza Yusuf on, I think it was the opinions of Imam Ghazali on pearls, and how a pearl is often used as a metaphor for the human, because the way a pearl is formed inside a muscle, like inside what is a mollusk? Is that what it's called? Do you know why pearls form? Right, there's a piece of sand or something that's inside this mollusk, and then as a protection, not for the pearl, not for the piece of sand, but for the environment, that is the oyster itself, to protect itself from this foreign element, this piece of sand, it starts to build these layers over it, right? Until it becomes a pearl. And it's gorgeous. It's subhanAllah, it's amazing that it's created from um, the environment's will to protect itself, but it beautifies it in doing so. And that Imam al-Ghazali talks about that this is why lu'lu' is often used as a metaphor for human beings, that we are foreign elements here. We're not from here. You know that, right? You know that, right? We're not from here. If you ever feel out of place, it's because you're not from here. And so, like pearls, and this is what's interesting is usually the Quran will say, وَخَلَقَنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِن نُطْفَةٍ أَمْشَاجٍ نَبْتَلِيهِ, right? We created man from a nutfa. From a nutfa. Do you know what the original meaning of nutfa is? A pearl. Who here has heard an ayah that, or this word nutfa? Nutfa. It's usually translated as the man's reproductive contribution. But its original meaning, that's a metaphorical extension. The original meaning is a pearl. You can find this in Lisan al-Arab, in the Taj al-Aruz, and all of the traditional lexicons, dictionaries. Subhanallah. Now go back and read these ayahs that mention the nutfa with that understanding. Not saying that it needs to be translated that way. No, it doesn't mean that. It means it carries that connotation intentionally. It really deepens the meaning now. Okay. We're almost at time. Let's get into the rings, shall we? Yeah, question? Yeah. All those beautiful things? Yeah. So what I said earlier was that there are multiple meanings to marjan, or at least attested in the lexicons, the classical lexicons. Some say small pearls, some say big pearls, and then some say coral. I'm of the opinion that it means coral, at least in this context. And that's because of the nature of, well, what's being discussed here are two very different groups. We have jinn, we have humans, we have trees above the ground, we have roots, we have what's in the heavens, we have what's in the earth, we have what's above the water, which we'll get to with the next ayah, and then what's below the water. So these very different, and coral and pearls grow in very different climates, like very different ecosystems. Pearls are, usually grow in like colder waters, coastal, but then coral will grow in more tropical, warm water where sunlight is directly on it. Right? It's because of where coral comes from. It's coming from these little polyps that grow. They're alive and they grow out of it and calcify. Basically, they're ejecting calcium until they continue to grow and grow and grow to make their big networks. So the coral is alive, but it's also an ecosystem for other things to live in. So it's very different than a pearl, right? Nonetheless, let's finish one more ayah and then we'll get into the rings. I want to do three more. Okay. وَلَهُ الْجَوَارِ الْمُنْشَآتُ فِي الْبَحْرِ كَالْأَعْلَامِ. That is, his are the ships, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his are the ships, munsha'at, that means like from ansha'a. Ansha'a means like to build up high, right? Raised above the sea like mountains, al-a'lam. A'lam, most of the classical tafsirs translate this as, or they interpret it to mean mountains. It can mean landmarks or flags. Yeah. But my understanding is this is referring to the ship's mast. That's way high in the sky, like mountains, that winds are just blowing them and they're moving. So I think this is the imagery here. Okay. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. Everyone on it, on the earth, are perishing. Everyone is perishing. What's cool here is fan is not a verb, right? It's not saying it will perish. There's no verbal tense here in the word fan. Fan means one who perishes. Like now, you're perishing. You're going to fanat. You're being annihilated, whether you want to be or not. You're going into the ghaib. You're to your akhirah. You're leaving this world. It doesn't feel like it, but you are. Everything is. And he says, it continues, وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ. All that remains is the face of your Lord. Wajh, the face. Usually this is understood to mean the attributes of Allah. That's what remains. Dhul Jalali wal Ikram, full of majesty and splendor. Now remember earlier what we were talking about, Ar-Rahman and the names of Allah. They are not, you will not find them in the creation. When the creation is folded up and destroyed, after everything goes to fana, what remains? The names of Allah. Dhul Jalali wal Ikram, His wajh. These are very important theological. This is like how the Mu'tazili and the Ashiris and Maturidis really duked it out, right? All over because of these ayat. Okay, we'll stop there. Now we will go into the rings. Oh, I'm not showing you that. That's the actual rings. But I'm going to make you guys do some work. We'll get there. Okay? I'm going to try to zoom in so we can all see. I did you the favor of kind of breaking out into smaller sections. I think we could probably do this for maybe 10 minutes. And then we can open up for questions, maybe 15. I think Salat is at 8:30, 8:40. 8:30? Okay. We've got time then. Anybody need a break? I feel like we just ingested a whole lot of, he said yes, please. We good? Okay. All right. So I'm going to just stick to the English now, but I wanted to expose you to the Arabic to understand why I made some of the translation decisions that I made, but also to encourage you to read the Arabic, because that's where the pearls are. Okay. The compassionate Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Qur'an, has taught the Qur'an. Khalaq al-insan, He created man, and He taught him speech. The sun and the moon are reckoned, and root sprouts and trees bow in submission, and the sky He raised and set the balance. I'm going to put one marker here. Okay, where did it go? I'm going to put that there. You want to know why? Because it makes a ring with the very last one. A little bit of foreshadowing. We won't get to that today, but keep that in mind. It is one big ring. Okay. Anyway, I know I'm scrolling fast. Blessed be the name of your Lord, full of majesty and splendor. Tabarak asmu rabbika bil jalali wal ikram. Didn't we just read that? That was the middle piece. Okay. So one thing that you'll find with ring composition is the first and the last will go together, and it'll typically rhyme thematically with the very center. كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذي الجلال والإكرام. Everyone on the earth is perishing, and all that remains is the face of your Lord, full of majesty and splendor. Okay. Okay, so He created man, He taught him speech. These are talking about the sha'n of Allah. Huwa fi sha'n. Kulla yawmin huwa fi sha'n. This is another ayah that we'll get to. The sun and the moon are reckoned. So this is another section. Now notice he's talking about the creation of man and his relationship to the Qur'an. Your relationship to the Qur'an. That is, you have this perfect pairing with your Bayan and the Quran. The sun and the moon are reckoned, the root sprouts and trees bow in submission, and the sky he raised and set the balance, so that you may not transgress in the balance, weigh with justice, and do not short the balance. And the earth he laid out for his creatures. I'm going to insert that again. Actually, let me just copy this. It's easier. Why am I going to put it there? Why would I divide that from the previous section? Hmm? Yeah, that's right. It's a different theme altogether. Yes. 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 Wait a second here. Okay. And the earth he laid out for his creatures with its fruits and palms in sheathed clusters and grains in their husks and fragrant plants. So which of your Lord's marvels will you deny? Where would you like to put another break? Between 13 and 14? Awesome. Oops. Hold on 1 second here. Okay, between 13 and 14. Where else would you like to put one? (16 and 17). Yeah, created the jinn from a smokeless fire.
Can we assume that functioning as our lit horizontal line
Yes, yes. Now that means that there's going to be so many sections. There's going to be at least 31 because it occurs 31 times. They're giving me a sign. I got 10 minutes. Oh, we didn't even get to find the actual rings yet. 1 second. I'm going to cheat because we're running out of time. Okay, sorry. I'm cheating just because we're running short on time, and I promised you that we would be able to see some of the rings, how they form here. We'll do this again when we come back next Tuesday. We'll see all of the rings and how they interact. So section A, I'm pulling this out. This is the compassionate, he taught the Quran. Section B, the next section, he created man, he taught him speech. Embedded in that, a ring within that, is a section C, where it's talking about the sun, the trees, the sky, and the balance. Then section D, it starts talking about the balance more specifically. And then section E, it's talking about the earth. He laid out his creatures with its fruits and palms in sheathed clusters. And then section F, the grains in their husk. Then it circles back It talks about the creation of man and jinn, and about the two oceans, Lord of the two easts and the two wests. Then it talks about this barrier, this balance that you cannot transgress. And then from them emerge the pearls and the coral. That is, in our world, we like in our life, not just in Jannah, but in our life, we have fruits and grains in their husk. Similarly, underwater, there are pearls and coral. Okay? And then the sailing ships raised above seas like mountains. I'm understanding this to mean to be referring back to the trees. And then directly in the middle, oh, you can barely read that. The purple is so bad. There. Everyone upon it is perishing. This is going to be the centerpiece. It's not going to reflect anything really in the previous section. But once you get past this, it starts all over again. We're going to skip this part because it requires more work. Here, it's going to start talking about standing in fear of his Lord. Whoever stands in fear of his Lord gets 2 gardens, both with lush branches. There's the wata afnan, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. That it's thick like coral. And then it gets into the fruits again. In them are 2 flowing springs. So which of your Lord's marvels will you deny? In them are fruits of every kind in pairs. Reclining on furnishings. Oh, I don't want to give this away yet. We'll come back to this one. This refers back to the husks, to the grains in husk. Did we talk about that? Yeah, we did. Okay, let me pause there. I think I just threw a lot at us. Do we have any questions? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Libra? Oh, is that the constellation of balanced scales? Yeah, it must be. It could be that. I'm not sure. Just to be honest, I don't know. Why would Libra be addressed? The same way, why would Thuraya, why would this specific star for Najm be, I think it's the Pleiades? Why that would be specifically addressed, I'm not quite sure. That's an unsatisfactory answer, but it's an honest one. Any other questions or thoughts? We haven't been able to demonstrate the rings yet. Yeah. Is the question who's being addressed here? My understanding, it's to all of Insan, because it's frequently referencing all of the Insan. خلق الإنسان علمه البيان, and then خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار. It will eventually start to address the mujrimin, the bad guys, the evildoers, but also the believers, inshallah. Any other questions? Reflections? You're saying, where's the rings? It's a large surah, give me a break. We'll get to it the next time. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, maraja is such a weird word because maraj by itself as a noun, marajun, it means a pasture. It's like the opposite, something to do with a camel. No, it's because um, the idea, as I understand it, and this is the way most, I guess, philologists will make this connection, is that when you have animals that are pasturing, you let them roam freely, and they just go out mixing wherever they want to go. Right? There's no um, stopping them. You just let them go. That's pasturing. Um, And as for what it means when marj al-bahrayni yaltaqayan, that is they're being merged. So I think that maybe aligns there. So yeah, it could end up being in the opposite, where it says بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان, that they do not transgress this. So they're merged together, but they don't go beyond the boundary. Right? There's actually a space where salt water. Usually people say this refers to the salt water and fresh water. When they meet, there's actually like this a barzakh between them where it's both salty and fresh water, and there's a specific type of um, special types of fish and that live in that water only. Usually, like freshwater fish and saltwater fish, they or creatures underwater, they're completely separate. They can't. If you're in freshwater, you don't go to salt, and back and vice versa. But there is a certain species that lives that can navigate both. I'll have to find out what that is. So, but anyway, it is that there's maraja. It both means to mix, but it means to um, also like not mix. But anyway, so marriage. This is how some came to understand marriage in Minnar is the fusion of smokeless fire. And then I think it makes sense why marjan, being like these coral, are all intertwined, and yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
So towards the beginning, you said that Surah is so extraordinary how also. Are there any parts of these sections covered so far that also indicate that?
Yeah. Yeah. Aside from the refrain, the which of your Lord's marvels will either of you deny? Um, I think it's again. I have not read this anywhere, so I'm just going to preface you like just be forewarned. This is just my opinion. Um, that the whole point of bringing up the lu'lu' marjan is to say lu'lu' are akin to humans and the marjan are akin to the jinn. And I think that's referenced by the fact that lu'lu' is often the metaphor or the symbol used for human beings, that we are created like pearls. That is, we're not literally created from a pearl, but our nature is one of pure, like we're pure, we're alien, but we have this certain intrinsic beauty to us that is pure in and of itself without being tainted. But we're in this kind of enclosure, protected from the environment, or the environment protecting itself from us. And then the fact that, and the second point is that, as I mentioned with the nutfa, but the point where marajan min nar, maraj al bahraini yataqiyan, and then lu'lu' war marjan, the marjan are brought up. Again, I feel like this is somehow contrasting humans with jinn. We don't occupy the same spaces, humans and jinn. If you're occupying spaces with jinn, we need to have a talk. Actually, don't talk to me. If you're, let's not have a talk. But in all seriousness, we occupy very different dimensions, even fresh water and salt water. Yeah. Can you repeat the question, or maybe somebody closer? I really couldn't hear. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Can somebody repeat it? Why jinn had a different response when they were created? Oh, that's right. That's right. There's a very famous hadith that when the Prophet ﷺ was reciting this to the Quraysh, he said to them, the jinn had a very different response to this when I recited it to them. This is, I think this is also in Tirmidhi. I'll have to find it for the next time. Does anybody know which one I'm talking about? Does anybody know what they responded with? We don't deny anything. Yeah. I'll try to find the whole narration. I've only heard the narration that when the Prophet ﷺ said they responded better than you did. SubhanAllah. But this is one of these. This is what is so powerful about this surah to me, that Allah is addressing both of us at the same time in our own dimensions, our own waters, both fresh water and salt water at the same time. Do you ever feel that? Do you ever feel like you're sharing the audience with not jinn here, but in their space? It's really extraordinary, and it's something to reflect on. Why is he making me aware that he's addressing them alongside me? You know what I mean? Like he could just say, you, which of your lords, you singular, you human beings, which of your lords' splendors, marvels will you deny? But it's as if he wants us to know, yes, there are jinn as well, things you will never see, you will never encounter. You don't even know what they're like. Okay, I think we're at time. She's telling us to wrap it up. Okay, no more questions? All right, you can see me afterwards if you have any more questions. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا اغفر لنا وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة في الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا اغفر لنا وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا المرسلين. Ya Allah, bless everyone in this gathering. Ya Allah, make us stewards of your deen. Ya Allah, make us proud to be Muslims. Ya Allah, bless this ummah, protect this ummah. Ya Allah, glorify this ummah, glorify your deen. Ya Allah, make us the best of examples to carry this mantle from the Prophet ﷺ. Ya Allah, imbue us with the characteristics of our beloved Messenger ﷺ. Ya Allah, forgive us for all of our shortcomings. Ya Allah, guide us and educate us and continue to guide us into learning your word, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Thank you so much, Professor Reynolds. Come back next week for another session. And then remember that you do have some activities outside along with some good things to make it support our vendors. We also work on the social contract, so we will have Saturday student help. So it's going to be an art workshop with Christine Clara, a local artist, and make sure to send it to that when it's available. And then we'll have another social activities as well in a couple of weeks, so make sure you do that as well. And have a lovely day. Make sure to come on, talk to somebody new, introduce yourself, and as always, please always back. Thank you all.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you, man? So good to see you, bro.